Good morning, everyone. I'm Missy Hughes. I am the Secretary and CEO of the Wisconsin Economic Development Corporation, and welcome to our live stream. This is something we're doing weekly on Monday mornings to try to bring you the most up-to-date information about what's happening at WEDC, what's happening around the state, especially in light of the COVID-19 crisis, and to get you the best information. We've launched Focus Forward at our website, wedc.org, to bring you programs and services and resources. There's just so much information coming at you these days. We thought it would be helpful to try to consolidate it in one place and make it the most accessible that you can find for your challenges as a business, a small business around Wisconsin, or any type of business. But we just really want to be here to help you. And so we invite your suggestions about what information you might need, what you might be looking for, and how we can help you going forward. So let me tell you a little bit about WEDC before we get rolling. We are a traditional economic development organization. That means we're part of the state. We have a special designation, a unique designation as a public-private entity. So we literally have 1 foot in the state government and 1 foot out. And the reason we have that is to provide us flexibility. When you're working in the economic marketplace, you really need to have that flexibility. You need to not be necessarily tied down by long-term administrative rules and regulations. What we want to do is be flexible and dynamic and be able to recognize the challenges that businesses and communities are facing and be able to move as quickly as we can in order to help those challenges. So a traditional economic development organization has tools in our toolbox, and those are things like tax credits or grants or loan programs. We use those to help businesses and communities be more productive, to really stimulate the economy. And we do that, in the normal course of business. We help entrepreneurs and innovators. We help in an international community. If you're trying to export your products, we might be able to help you learn more about how to do that and learn about distribution in other countries and opportunities for that. So we really try to have the breadth of what is available for your business and offer that to you. Now, obviously, with the COVID-19 crisis, lots have changed, and a lot has changed at WEDC as we've approached this whole challenge, and we've looked at our toolbox. It is a continuing toolbox that we're using with communities. We continue to make awards of grants and help businesses with loans and help businesses make their projects come to life. But we've also really pivoted to reacting to what's happening. And we've done that in a few different ways. I want to walk you through those different programs that we've set up just to give you a sense of what we've been working on. So first and foremost, right when this COVID-19 crisis hit, we saw small businesses all around the state being impacted. And we stood up what we called SB 2020, Small Business 2020. And that was a $5 million grant program designed to help businesses with less than 20 employees with a $20,000 grant over 2 months. We worked with our partners all around the state, CDFIs, which are community development financial institutions, to be able to deploy those funds. Now, let me be clear, those funds have all been utilized at this point, but we learned a lot, and we learned first and foremost that there's a lot of need, and $5 million, honestly, it's crazy to say, is a drop in the bucket right now with what we're facing. But we wanted to understand, how is it that as a government type entity, we can move things out quickly and what we can do. So we were able to do that, and we're glad for it. We had many businesses were able to take advantage of that, and all around the state we were able to provide some relief. But going forward, we knew that there was going to be much more that needed to happen. So the next thing that we did is we worked with the Small Business Administration, which is based in Washington, D.C., to help get the designation for Wisconsin as a state that needed aid from Washington and from the Small Business Administration. So, if you think about it, in a normal natural disaster, you have a single community affected, or you have a region, a county affected by flooding or a tornado or something like that, and you go to the Small Business Administration and you get a designation as a disaster area. Well, what we saw with COVID-19 is not only a county or a community being affected, but the whole state. And so we had the whole state designated as a disaster area. And, indeed, every other state in our nation has been declared as a disaster area so that the Small Business Administration can deploy these funds all around. We've seen that through the Economic Injury Disaster Loan Program and also through the Small Business Administration's PPP program, the Payroll Protection Program, which many of you have heard about and read about, and indeed many of you have probably applied for relief under that program. And you can find more information about that at Focus Forward or at sba.gov, which is the direct link to the Small Business Administration. Overall, Wisconsin has done really well in receiving those funds. We've gotten about a total of $10 billion worth of Small Business Administration funds to 74,000 or so businesses in the state. If you consider that we have 500,000 businesses in Wisconsin, that's, a good effort, and it is going to help those businesses, and it's going to help that funding come into the state and keep those businesses going, hopefully as we move through this crisis. Wisconsin did really well compared to other states in getting those funds, and I think it's a testament to the support networks that we have in our chambers, our community banks, and our credit unions, and in helping folks be able to access those funds. So that's ongoing, and I imagine that we'll continue to see some stimulus from the federal government coming in, and we'll continue to provide information to small businesses about that as we go forward. The other thing that we were tasked with doing was to have this essential versus non-essential question answered for businesses. So as you came into the Safer at Home order, one of the pieces of that puzzle was to determine what's an essential business that should stay open even during this emergency time, and what's a non-essential business that should close its doors for this time in order to facilitate folks staying at home. Now, nobody wants to be essential versus non-essential. And I'll tell you, as we saw this coming across, I was one of many that was saying, let's not do this essential versus non-essential, but things need to happen fast. And that was, something that needed to happen fast in order to be able to help institute Safer at Home and help make sure that we could have directions for folks to be able to stay at home. So one of the things that we did was stand up a website where folks could ask questions about being essential versus non-essential. We've gotten a lot of requests and a lot of determinations about that. One of the places where it really started to be important was if you're a business that had 1 foot in essential and 1 foot in non-essential. Meaning, if you're a landscaping business and you had folks going out to construction sites to help there, but you also had a small retail shop on your premises. So we were able to help businesses determine what should stay open and what shouldn't stay open. We also got a lot of questions from employees who were concerned that they needed to go to work at an essential business, then they wanted to be able to stay at home, or they felt they weren't safe, and they had concerns about that. We worked with those employees. A lot of this comes down to having conversations that are sometimes tough conversations with your employer, but informing them like, hey, I don't feel safe, or I think we could do this better. And I think those conversations really facilitate doing the best we can in a tough environment and a tough situation. And so I think we've seen those conversations come through more and more. One of the things that we did that was really pretty cool, I think, at WEDC was to help with the challenges around PPE, personal protective equipment, and other protective equipment. So, as we've seen this conversation come forward, one of the things that happens is we needed to have more PPE, not only for our frontline workers, our healthcare workers, but those folks who are staying at essential workplaces. And we were able at WEDC to help make connections between businesses that manufacture PPE and the needs of the state, the needs of the hospitals. But also we saw businesses in Wisconsin pivot to create manufacturing for PPE, whether it was turning into more paper gowns or masks that were able to be used in lesser intense environments than the healthcare environment. Or we saw breweries and other distilleries moving from brewing beer or vodka to making hand sanitizer, which has been in short shortage since that time. So we're excited about our help with that. And we're also excited to now be launching a portion of our Wisconsin supplier network that will help folks be able to find PPE as we head into this moment of reopening and reinvigorating our economy. We have businesses that are looking for PPE for their employees to make sure their employees can stay safe, or for cleaning needs on their work sites or in their shops. And so it's really important now that at WisconsinSupplierNetwork.org, you can go there as a business and be able to find and filter for sources of PPE. And so if you are looking at reopening, or you're looking at your supply needs and you'd like to be able to find more, you can also be doing that. And so I encourage you, that's WisconsinSupplier.network. One of the other things that we've been doing is collecting data from all around the state about what's been happening. So we've been able to collect data not only from surveys that we've been doing. UW-Oshkosh has helped us with a survey all around the state, but we've also got regional economic development directors that are on my team working all around the state and providing us information about what they see and what's happening so that we can really understand the impact of COVID-19. And finally, we've been able to work with some big companies in Wisconsin that have access to data, real-time data about what's happening on a consumer level or a merchant level, looking at that day-to-day literal swiping of debit cards and credit cards and understanding what stores are open, what stores aren't open, where have we seen declines in activity, so that we can know as we start to reopen where our real challenges are, where things are steady state, and then we can help really act quickly and make those things, find solutions for those problems as quickly as we can. So you really have to understand the key data points and the key challenges in order to be able to do that, and we're excited to be able to access that data. So as we turn towards recovery in Wisconsin and we turn towards reopening, and obviously there's been a lot of conversation about reopening and when it's going to happen and where it's going to happen, both on a regional basis and on a timing basis. Our focus at WEDC, with the direction of the governor, has really been how are we going to reopen? And our focus has been on how do we be ready for that moment. So Wisconsin Ready is a program that was part of the Badger Bounce Back and is part of the Badger Bounce Back program. And working in conjunction with DHS, we have been really trying to think about what will our businesses need as they prepare to open and they're ready for that moment. So one of the things that we've done, and we just did this last week, at the end of last week, that I'm really excited about, is we have launched a set of guidelines for businesses to be able to access, to understand, okay, if I'm a restaurant or I'm a hair salon or I'm a place of entertainment, and I anticipate that at some point in the near future, based on the gating criteria of the Badger Bounce Back plan, I'm going to be able to reopen. And I want to be ready for that moment, and I want my workers to be ready for it, and I want my consumers to be ready for it. What do I have to do? And so we've now set a list of guidelines on our website that are going to be able to help businesses be ready. And I want to be really clear, these guidelines have come from business. So we went out and searched and talked with all sorts of different associations and businesses and said, what are you doing? What are the protocols you're putting in place? And can we borrow those? Can we plagiarize them to be able to develop a set of guidelines that are really useful for businesses because they come from business? And I'll say, from my position as the head of the Economic Development Corporation for the state, I am so impressed with what businesses have been doing all around the state to get ready for this moment. They have understood that they don't want anybody getting sick on their watch, whether it's a workplace or a customer. And so it's really important to take a step back and be analyzing, what do I have to do, and really taking a deep dive and looking at your business. These are pinch points. I can't have these shifts at the same time moving in and out of my building. I'm going to have to stagger those shifts. We've been able to work with manufacturers that have watched COVID-19 travel across the state, whether it's coming from China or Italy or France, learning lessons about how do you need to manage your workplace and putting those lessons into place. And so what's really important is this ability to look at your business and understand how do you make changes and what do you do. So let's dive into the guidelines. First and foremost, we have a general set of guidelines, and this is just really that nuts and bolts of what you need to be doing and thinking about, okay, I need to have a cleaning schedule for my work site, and I need to be diligent about that, not only because it's going to help prevent the spread of COVID-19, but it's going to help protect my workers, and it's going to help protect my community and their families. So that includes, we know it, but it's always worth saying it again, social distancing, making sure that your employees can keep social distance from each other, making sure that your customers have the ability to social distance not only from each other, but also from your employees. Hand washing and cleaning, a cleaning schedule is really important. Making sure that your employees have time to go and wash their hands and do that thoroughly and the facilities to do that. Masks are becoming, really, really important, and we need to be wearing masks for each other. I just happened to be able to go to my hardware store this weekend, and I wore a mask. I recognized that all of the employees were wearing masks. And listen, an employee who's there, they might not need the mask for themselves, but they might have somebody at home that they're worried about. And that's what we do in Wisconsin. We take care of each other, and we think about our whole community, and we think about our vulnerable communities. So while it might be uncomfortable to wear a mask and you might feel weird, it's really a service that you're doing to all those other folks that are willing to show up at work so that we can be safe. And it's critical for us to be thinking about that. One of the really important things that to keep in mind is we need to stay home. If you don't feel well, you need to stay home. If you feel like you might have a fever or a cough, any of the symptoms of COVID-19, stay at home. And, there's lots of ability to do curbside pickup, to do curbside delivery. We've really opened up a lot of these opportunities. And so thinking about how can I stay at home if I'm not feeling well, and that's going to be really critical, both as an employee and if you're a customer. Again, thinking about those employees and being considerate of the fact that they're showing up at work, even though they might have somebody at home that they're concerned about, and so respecting what they've done. So those are our general guidelines, and I think it's really important to keep in mind as an umbrella, those general guidelines. And then, as we dive into the specific guidelines we have for each of the different industries, we've really developed a long list, and I invite you to go to Focus Forward at WEDC.org and view those guidelines and dive into them. I'll just list some of them. We've got guidelines for agriculture, construction, entertainment and amusement, gym and fitness centers, hair and nail salons, hospitality and lodging. Now, these are all examples of businesses that are still not yet open because of the Badger Bounce Back Plan and the phasing and the gating criteria there. So let me pause for a second because I know there's a lot of questions about the gating criteria, and it's a pretty well-developed system that I want you to think about. And so what gating criteria means is we're tracking the data and the metrics, and when I say we, that's DHS, the Department of Health Services, are tracking data both on the number of symptoms that we're seeing at ERs that are influenza or COVID related, and then understanding how are those symptoms being tracked and keeping numbers of that so we can try to get a handle on the community spread. We're also tracking the number of cases, and we want to see the decline in cases and symptoms over a 14-day period before we really start opening things up. And it's really important for that overall decline to be seen. And I know there's been some questions about, well, if you're doing more tests, you're going to find more cases. And that's really something to keep in mind, because what we're doing is we're tracking the percentage of tests, a percentage of cases within those tests, so that we have a trend line we can follow. There's a lot of logic behind these things, and the data and the metrics are important. The last gating criteria that we're looking at is what's our hospital capacity. So as many of you know, COVID-19 has the ability to really knock you out at your knees and send you into the hospital. And so we want to make sure that we have the right hospital capacity, whether you're in a rural area or in an urban area, to make sure that if there is an influx of cases, we can handle it. I live in a county that has had very, very few cases of COVID-19, but at the same time, our hospital capacity is pretty small. And if there was a quick outbreak, it would quickly get overwhelmed somebody pointed out to me, okay, well then you take folks to, the nearest place to me is La Crosse. But then you have ambulances moving on the road, and you only have a limited number of ambulances. So really, you can get ahead of yourselves with a quick outbreak, and so that's why it's really important to watch these data and these metrics. So that's what's determining what reopens our businesses at this time. And like I said, obviously there's a lot of conversations about when and what that looks like. But for WEDC, we're really focused on the how. And so that's why these guidelines are really critical. A few of the other guidelines that we're working on are manufacturing and outdoor gathering, outdoor recreation. Those are things, again, especially the outdoor pieces, that we continue to gather information about and we continue to have conversation about. I know one of the questions that has come up is about summer camps, and will summer camps be allowed? Well, we've seen that hopefully children are not as impacted by COVID-19, and so it seems like summer camps should be something that would be viable with the right types of conditions, but we need to be thoughtful about it, and we need to make sure that we're watching the data and the metrics again on that, and we'll see more about summer camps coming in the future. And listen, I just want to say I have 3 grown children at this point, but I understand the challenges of childcare when you're trying to go back to work or you're working remotely. It's really, really difficult, and it is definitely a focus of the administration to be thinking about. As we regain momentum in the economy, as we move things forward, we really need to be considering, is childcare available? How do we make childcare more available? There is also professional services guidelines. So that's going to be lawyers and bankers and other types of services that you might be able to receive. It's wise to look at those and understand, what are the available ways to work remotely on that? What can we be doing to really solve problems and keep that social distancing going? We have information for restaurants. A lot of restaurants are doing takeout right now, but as restaurants are able to reopen, as we enter into phase 1 of the Badger Bounce Back Plan, it's important to be thinking about those types of challenges. A restaurant has set up their business with a lot in mind as far as where the tables go and how my wait staff works. So standing in your restaurant and thinking about those difficult questions. Can you do outdoor dining? Do you continue to do takeout? I know those are really challenging questions, and that's why these guidelines are here to help kind of foster those questions and get you thinking about it. So all of these guidelines are there for you to review and to be thinking about and to be really considering. So I want to dive in. I think I've got a couple questions, and I want to make sure that we've touched on them because I know folks are looking for information about that. We talked about the gating criteria, so I'm going to skip that one. One of the things that have come in, are the guidelines mandatory? And so here's what I would say about that. We have, as I said, gotten these guidelines from business areas, and we've been able to work with businesses to really think about what are the best protocols. And we've been able at WEDC to work hand in hand with the Department of Health Services to review those guidelines. And they have looked at them and said that this is in conjunction and equates to the advice that they're putting out. And so we have a really good set of guidelines, but I'm going to focus on the fact that those are not mandatory, but they help to set expectations. And so if you are following those guidelines and you can tell your customers and your employees that you're following those guidelines, I think it'll go a long way towards engendering that confidence and that feeling that we are taking care of each other, which is really critical in this time. At some point we might get to the place where we have more of a regulatory system around COVID-19, but we're not there yet. This is a fast evolving situation, and we need to be doing the best that we can. Everybody is anxious to get the economy reopened and regaining momentum, and following these guidelines and listening to them is going to be a key piece of that puzzle and something we should really keep in mind. So let's see, I have a question about weddings and outdoor events, and the cost of that is every week we are not open, it costs us over $8,000. When can we expect to open? I know these are really difficult questions, and the challenge about this is, a wedding that's supposed to happen on May 10th, which was yesterday, that's a lost opportunity, and that's really a challenge for someone to be facing. And so I think the urgency to have these outdoor gatherings, to be able to bring people together, is really critical. But again, just thinking about how do you do that in a way, you're outside, you should be able to have social distancing, but you're going to have pinch points, whether it's in the bathrooms or whether it's in the kitchen area as you're preparing the food. And so really, these are complicated questions, and I invite you to, review the guidelines on outdoor gatherings and give us feedback on them. If you think that there's improvements to be made or things that aren't realistic there, we're really open to that, and we want to keep those things going. The last question I'm going to, I think, be able to touch on today before we head out is, are they tracking asymptomatic positive cases? So right now what we've been doing is setting up our testing capacity in the state of Wisconsin, focused on testing symptomatic patients so that we can at least at the start get a handle on those. So what's really critical about this is if someone is showing symptoms to COVID-19, no matter how mild they might be, they are potential spreaders of the virus. And so what we want to do is we want to identify those people, and then what we're doing is called contact tracing. And contact tracing means asking that person, where have you been, what have you been doing, and who have you been in touch with? And then by doing that, we can, in the words of Secretary Palm, bear hug that case, and we can try to limit the spread of that by asking people to enter into isolation and take care of themselves during this time frame. So right now, the handle is trying to get on those symptomatic patients, and then as we spread and get more testing capacity, we will be able to do more testing on asymptomatic patients and be able to understand that community spread piece. But this is classic combating an epidemiological challenge, and these are tools that have been used for many years to be able to set this up. But amazing things are happening where we are starting to see technology around phone tracing and being able to work with people and on that basis. So the last thing I would say is, if you do get a call from a contact tracer, please take that call. It is part of reinvigorating our economy that we get a handle on this and we all work together. So these things go hand in hand, and it's really important that we all dive in and help with this concept of helping to keep the spread of COVID-19 down so that we don't have setbacks, we can continue to reopen the economy, and we can continue to move things forward. I think, as we continue to see this move forward, I think we're seeing positive things in Wisconsin. I think we're going to continue to see us working together and continuing to see efforts towards reopening. Again, this is all about the how. How do we do it so that we do it well and we keep things moving forward? And I invite you all to join us in doing this together. We're all in this together. We need to be working on this together, and I hope that you'll review the guidelines, give us feedback, and next week we will have more information about what's happening at WEDC and what's happening in the state, and I look forward to speaking with you then. And in the meantime, check out Forward Focus at WEDC.org, and I'm Missy Hughes with the Wisconsin Economic Development Corporation. Thanks so much, and take care.
This program is a production of WisconsinEye, an independent, nonpartisan, nonprofit media network with a mission to inform, educate, and engage the citizens of Wisconsin. WisconsinEye is the nation's first and only independently funded state civics broadcast network, providing gavel-to-gavel access to government proceedings and events at the state capitol.
Hi, I'm John Henkes, president of WisconsinEye Public Affairs Network, and I'm speaking to you today to ask for your financial support. For 14 years, WisconsinEye has provided uninterrupted, gavel-to-gavel live coverage from our state capitol, the legislature, the Supreme Court, the governor's office. We're proud to continue to do that and continue through this time of crisis with important coverage. We are 100% committed to bringing these important meetings into your home or place of work. We've created online pathways that allow us to connect you live with these important events. But WisconsinEye needs your help to do so. At this time, we are facing unprecedented staffing, technical, and financial challenge. So if you rely on our coverage to stay informed on issues you care and need to know about, I ask that you consider a one-time charitable gift today to help us through this challenge. Whether you're following the DHS briefings, the Wisconsin Elections Commission, or leadership briefings from the state capitol, or any of the timely interviews conducted by our senior producer, Steve Walters, we could use your support today. If just a fraction of the thousands who value WisconsinEye coverage say yes with a gift of any size, it will provide a huge boost. So thank you. To donate, please visit wiseye.org/donate. That's WISEYE.org/donate. Or send a check to WisconsinEye, 122 West Washington Avenue, Suite 200, Madison, Wisconsin, 53703. Again, thank you so much. Please be safe. Stay optimistic. We are Wisconsin.